So welcome to Pinoy Wheel. My name is Katrina Sevilla, and today we have another interesting subject to talk about with our special guest, Kenneth Rayman. Kenneth Rayman is a history enthusiast, a writer by heart, a speaker, a world traveler, and an inspiring blogger behind Where the Heart Calls You. Kenneth, welcome to Pinoy Wheel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. So, Kenneth, can you tell us which state in the U.S. are you located at?
I am in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. I live just maybe 30 minutes outside of Seattle.
Okay, so just to let our viewers know, we're actually 9 hours away from each other. So it's now 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 in the afternoon in Belgium and around 8:03 in the morning there, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, once again, thank you, Kenneth, for being with us at this moment on your early morning. So just as I mentioned earlier, we do have a very interesting subject for today's episode. Kenneth, you're in a niche that seems very intriguing, which is about finding personal growth through travel experiences. So please correct me if I didn't get your niche right, okay? Can
Mhm.
you tell us more on what exactly you are into?
As you said, I'm a historian and a writer at heart. I just grew up in a family that made me question everything. They were like, learn all you can, but don't take everything, form your own opinions. And I really took that to heart when it came to Russian history. For some odd reason, Russian history was where I was first introduced to the world. And um, I've said this in my speeches. I didn't see the way that the world could. There was something missing. I had, at 4 or 5 years old, you only understand fairy tales, Disney tales. So I heard about this prince and this princess, Nicholas II and his wife, who unfortunately lost their lives in 1918. So it was like Prince Charming and Snow White, somebody tricked them into eating the poisoned apple. And all of a sudden, we went from that to nuclear bombs and communist ideals. I didn't know anything about politics at 5 years old, but I did know that the Rocky IV Dolph Lundgren Soviet boxer, 6'4", 250 pounds versus 20-pound, 2 foot tall me, didn't stand a chance. So I was like, how did we get from Snow White to this Soviet boxer? Um, and that was how I got my start in terms of, what I wanted to understand the backstory. And that's how I've approached any of my travels, um, is what is there that I can help, say, show the US audience, which is primary. I have audiences all over the world, but primarily readership is in the US. What is something that I can show the US readership that they have some sort of context for, or can get context from what they know, and then help them understand what's actually there. Um, if you are a fan of the Hunger Games series, the young adults series, rather than just watching the movies, if you read the books, I said, I'm more interested in the background characters, the background districts. I don't necessarily care about Katniss and Peeta. I'd rather hear about the tribute from District 7, the tribute from District 3. It helps me understand the story as a whole through those background details.
Awesome. Awesome story, Kenneth. By the way, I watched the whole series of Hunger Games, and I love that movie actually, and I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to read the books. It's very
Yes,
yeah,
I was really excited when I heard that she came out with the prequel here in the last few months. Still haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm excited to get my hands on a copy.
great. Now, I would like to ask, why did you start traveling outside the United States? If I'm not mistaken, your first huge journey happened in Russia, right? So tell us more about that first huge step that you made and why traveling in the first place.
Besides the fact that I'd always been a Russian history buff, and wanted to, at some point in my life, go. Um, my father unfortunately had passed away about maybe a year before that first trip in 2017, and I thought, okay, this is going to be my one and done trip. My dad always wanted me to chase my dreams. He passed away shortly after I moved to Seattle, which he always knew was a dream of mine. So I figured it was his way of holding on until he knew his kids, both me and my siblings, were all in a space where they wanted to be. Um, and with his inheritance that he left me, I thought he was nice enough to do this for me. Why don't I chase another dream? And the dream was only supposed to be the one trip. But as people always say, the travel bug can bite. Um, and I came home and I realized that I just felt like something was missing from that trip. Um, and I felt like life would never return for the the way that I wanted it to be. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to take a leap. There's going to be some bumpy roads ahead because you're diving straight into something on your own rather than the safety net of a job. But I just feel like there's something there. I need to go back. So I uh, reapplied for a visa because I had only had a specific time for my first Russian visa. So I had to reapply, and that took over a month. And then flew over a month later back to Moscow and spent time there spent a week in Moscow. And in between the two trips, that's when I started my blog. I started it on Facebook and Instagram primarily before I had the website.
Okay. Thank you. That's an inspiring story of how you started your traveling, your first travel
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Now, traveling has been a normal thing for a lot of people in recent years. And for younger generations like millennials, Gen Y, Z, and more, social media has been their platforms to express their lifestyle, whether it is fake or real. So like when, for example, I go to Instagram, I see a friend of mine or a celebrity checking into one of the tourist spots here in Europe, and they say, I've been in this place, hashtag Paris. Now, I'm not saying taking photos during travels and posting on social media is wrong. I'm also guilty actually of doing those things. So what can you say about this idea of depicting travel experience versus finding your narrative and other people's narrative to transforming your lives?
For me, and this is something I always say, um, and when I first got into the Instagram scene, trying to make the blog on Instagram and try to figure out who to follow, how to get in touch with people who are in the travel space. I did get involved, or I did get sucked into some of those um, click funnels that they might call them for people that were saying, follow me and you can find, I can make you $5,000 in a month, through my special system. Um, I've always said to people that you'll never find a picture of me on a beach with my laptop propped up on my knees and a Bitcoin miner on my screen, and I'm checking my graphs of investments. That's not me. Um, the everyone's motive for traveling is different, but the younger generations are really looking for a different experience. They're more mobile. They also have more. They've had more exposure to and availability to of information, so they are wanting to have different experiences rather than just, okay, I'm gonna go to the family beach spot every year and just veg out for a week. They're not wanting to have that type of experience anymore. Um, I've seen multiple reports that the millennial generation is becoming more and more of the the purchasing power within the travel industry. I can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I just know that there is an amazing opportunity for travel companies coming in.
Okay, great. I'm actually on Instagram, but I'm not active at all. All my friends are there, and they're really putting a story or photos every single day. So for me, that's okay. So, Instagram is not really my thing. I'm not posting so much also about my daily activity. So, may I ask who is your specific target in this particular niche?
My readers tend to skew a little older. My It's usually Gen X and Gen Millennial that are the major readers of my blog. Um,
Okay, thank you. So, what best tips can you give to those who are looking to start to find personal transformation through traveling?
for me, it's know exactly where you want to go and for the right reasons. Like, why are you wanting to book the ticket? Um, for me, I've always wondered what is there. My most recent trip that was for the blog entirely was to Poland, and I wanted to see what was there besides the World War II experience. I, I said there's got to be a Poland underneath all of the Holocaust narrative that we're taught in the U.S. And I know it's there, and I want to just try and see if I can find it, and help my readers understand that there's a Poland outside of Auschwitz. Um, and it's so for that type of question, it's exactly that. There's a reason that you're wanting to book the ticket, and what is it?
Great. So first, know your purpose, why booking a ticket,
Mhm.
and what is it? All right. Great advice, Kenneth. So, also, I would like to know, because I am a mompreneur, and for example, if I would like to start this kind of journey, how is it going to work for those who already have family and have children and they want to bring along their loved ones with them in this journey? How is that gonna happen?
And I am not qualified to answer that question. I had a fur daughter at that first part of my travel journey, so I know people that do it. I have a couple of contacts within the travel industry, but I honestly don't know how to answer that question because I don't know how they do it.
Okay, no problem. So I always ask this question to every single guest on Pinoy Wheel. What is your favorite personal growth book, and tell us something about it?
I am going to have to say there's a couple that I can think of, but the number one that I've always pointed to is actually called Solve for Happy by Mo Gadet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Gawdat. Um, he is a former Google engineer, Google executive who wrote a book wanting to detail his son's way of life. Um, his son passed away, unfortunately, due to a medical mishap during a routine appendectomy, and he looked at this as a tribute to his son. And he looked at happiness from an engineering point of view. So his formula is happiness is the events of your life minus the expectations that you have for it. And if you look at things through that simple formula, and he goes through every single way that happiness is affected in your life, and he's very, very articulate. And the fact that it's engineering could scare people away, thinking engineering is very complex. The only time he gets really complex is when he's talking about um, creationism and the belief systems involved with religion and things like that. He's very articulate and wanting to be, uh, wants to uh, not offend anybody. He toes the line very well, going between one or the other. But the rest of the book is very, very easy to understand. But when he gets into the physics of, how is the universe created through the Big Bang, that type of, and the way it goes into happiness with your belief system, that is where it gets a little hairy for me, because I hated math as a kid.
Same here. It's not my favorite subject at school, but
Mhm.
I'm going to check out that book definitely. So to end this interesting conversation about traveling and transformation, why do you think should people travel?
I think people should travel to widen their horizons. Um, when I came home, the saying, I don't know if it's more wide outside of the U.S., but the saying that I've always heard is, traveling opens your eyes. The first time you go outside of your own country, you come back and look at your country through new eyes. That was the exact same way that I viewed my experience. I came home going, wow, there is so much out there that I don't know. And there's so much out there that points to where I always believed not as wrong. It's not wrong. It's just there are so many different levels of perception of the same issue. Um, and you've got to be empathetic to every point of view. Um, so I think that's the main reason why everybody should travel at some point, whether it's getting out of their country, whether it's getting out of their state. Just the farther away you can get away from your um, familiar surroundings, the the more you'll grow.
Wonderful. I do agree on what you said that traveling widens your horizon. I have the opportunity also to travel to different places, and I'm grateful for that. But transforming yourself in that journey is really another level. So that's what I'm looking forward in the future, definitely.
Mhm.
Now, for our viewers and listeners who want to know some more information about your activity or event, how do they get in touch with you?
Um, you can find me on any of the socials like Facebook or Instagram at Where the Heart Calls You. My website is wheretheheartcallsyou.net. And my email is just kenneth@wheretheheartcallsyou.net as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kenneth Rayman, for joining us in this interesting episode.
Thank you.